the saga never ends. Last week on Twitter, Floyd Mayweather, quote-unquote, called out Manny Pacquiao, challenges him to a May 5th bout. Gabe, unless you're very gullible or some sort of Pollyanna, this was never going to happen, folks. And I'm not assigning blame to anybody. The reality is this. Manny Pacquiao, you knew among the 4 candidates chosen for him by Bob Arum who he was going to face. And as it relates to Mayweather, he was always going to fight a golden boy client, in my opinion. Now, last week there was incredible backlash over Robert Guerrero. I believe that they were on their way to a deal. Just my opinion, and I think they gauged the public's interest, and there was none, and they backed away. So here's what I think. I think they can make this fight for November. I do. But what do they say before marriage, before you consummate it? Speak now or forever hold your peace. I believe that there should be a public ultimatum to Bob Arum and to whoever else is involved on Mayweather's side. Make that fight now or forever hold your peace.
I could not agree more. I'm so sick of it. And you know, when the call out on Twitter happened, it reminded me, I did an interview with James Kirkland on the radio right after he beat Angulo. And we asked him, you know, the last thing, is this really your Twitter account? There's some guy impersonating him. He's like, no, you know, and I hear people calling me out. And it just stuck in my head when I saw what Floyd Mayweather did. James said, you didn't call me out. You called Twitter out. You know, and to me, it's, if you want to get this fight done, you don't do it in the press. You tell Oscar De La Hoya to shut his Twitter account down and stop talking in general. You guys get behind closed doors, you hammer this out, and you let us all know when it's done. I think it's exhausting at the public interest, particularly for the casual fan. I think they've moved past it. I no longer have my casual fan friends ask me about this fight, except with some derision, like, are they ever going to get their act together? I think it makes the sport look petty and bad and greedy and just disorganized in general.
For right now, it is the quote-unquote black guy for boxing. There's always like that one story. It used to be Mike Tyson's behavior, or the fact you couldn't get Riddick Bowe Lennox Lewis done, and other times it's always the sanctioning bodies or fights not happening. Here's the issue, though. You can call someone out on Twitter, but as I pointed out ad nauseum, what about negotiating the fight?
Right.
I don't think it's just that easy saying, I'm going to fight you on Twitter, so now we're going to have a fight on the canvas. And I think Floyd's got to understand one thing. There's a lot of other people, perhaps every other fighter in the world that he could dictate to, the date, the venue, the time, the drug testing. Manny Pacquiao's not it. Bob Arum simply will not let that happen.
He's not that guy.
And there's another issue here. And I know people are going to jump all over Bob, but he's absolutely right. If this is a co-promotion, and I think people have to brush up on the definition of what that phrase means. That means half the money from the other side has to guarantee Floyd Mayweather's money. Now, Floyd Mayweather can ask for a nickel. He can ask for $100 million. But whatever that amount is, Bob Arum has a deal with one client. That's Manny Pacquiao. And if he is not going to take the full risk on this fight, and I think then people say, well, they've already agreed to 50-50. Gabe, here's another issue, though. If you take Business 101, you got to understand what the expenditures are and what the projections are. There's a lot of money on the table, but I've been told by people that know a lot more than me, unless both sides can come to a realistic guarantee, there still may not be enough to make this fight a reality.
That's what it comes down to, and that's what I mean. You know, negotiating in the press with Richard Schaefer, you know, openly saying Bob Arum's full of it and he's lying, and I don't think any of that really helps move the cause forward. What I want to hear is, yeah, we got $50 million. We're going to give that to Floyd as a guarantee. Bob, what are you going to give Pacquiao? And let's get this done.
Gabe, that's another maddening thing when people say, well, this is self-financing. What's Bob talking about? It'll absolutely make the money. Then why don't you take out a loan, put it into escrow, and put that money down and call Bob Arum's bluff?
Thank you.
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
If you believe that this fight is a guarantee to do a certain amount on pay-per-view, I believe that you should go out there and call Bob Arum's final bluff and corner him. Now,
that's a call-out.
Yeah, that's a real call-out. If you actually take your own money, go to a bank, and by the way, the Swiss banker here is Richard Schaefer. Call upon your resources or your contacts and put $50 to $75 million into an account and say, Bob, this is our share of the promotion. Let's get it done.
Well, and Floyd's the great gambler. He's always showing us how much money he wins on his middle name or nickname is Money, for God's sakes. Why doesn't he put up the money? He keeps 100% of all his money, as he says. He doesn't pay anybody else. He's worth, several $100 million or whatever. They always want to lie. I made $80 million or I made $100 million on each fight. Then $50 million should be chump change for you. Put that up the guarantee against the back end and let's go to work. That's a real call out. Those are business moves. Putting it on Twitter, I called out Megan Fox. I still haven't heard back from her.
Oh, she's ducking you.
She doesn't want none of this.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. She doesn't want none of that. But seriously, here's another issue. The call out. When Robert Guerrero on Friday, I actually got a kick out of this because I got to give Mario Serrano credit. He's taken a fighter who has not fought in it's going to be at least a year by the time he fights again. He's kept him in the public eye.
He has.
And it's such a ridiculous idea or notion that Robert Guerrero somehow was even in the sweepstakes. They were actually in the sweepstakes.
Yeah.
I give them credit, but when he said, step up, punk, I think the call-out forever jumped the shark. Not only did it jump the shark, it jumped the Love Boat, it jumped the Titanic, it jumped the iceberg, it also jumped the leather jacket of Arthur Fonzarelli. I mean, my God. Here's what I think should happen. Floyd Mayweather, if he wants to have a bona fide pay-per-view event, there's only one name. I mean, the realistic ones. Saul Alvarez. Saul Alvarez brings money. He has a belt at 54. He could sell tickets. I think Robert Guerrero, the issue is he's a good fighter, has not had a victory over 135. Now, the question is, as it relates to Manny Pacquiao, who I believe will be fighting June 9th or June 16th, according to Aram, what fight do you prefer for him out of the four that have been mentioned, Gabe?
Oh, like none.
None, really?
Well, Bradley, the other way I would go with Floyd, you go one way or the other, 54 or 160, because I think Martinez is just as well known as Victor Ortiz was when they decided to fight. Both those are challenges, and they're good fights that everybody would want
But
to
Martinez
see.
has a date, though.
Yeah, he
That's
does
the
have
caveat,
he does
though,
have
March
a date.
17th.
He does have a date. I think Bradley would be probably the most interesting. I think Lamont Peterson would be cool, but I think it would feel like a cash out because I don't think stylistically he can beat Manny, or people feel that he can beat Manny. Although I think Manny's on the other side of the hill at this point. I would probably like to see Bradley. I think he's probably done the most. He's really earned it. He has a win over Lamont Peterson, so I don't see why Peterson should jump over him.
It's interesting, the people that talk about earning it and deserving it and take pound for pound so seriously. Well, Tim Bradley has the best resume at 140. He beat Lamont Peterson, and he's pound for pound in a lot of those rankings. Now, all of a sudden, that doesn't count.
Right.
I find that to be maddening in a sense that, all right, folks, does earning it and deserving it in pound for pound ratings matter or not? Or do you move the goalposts at several different times?
It's like Ludabello always says, the belts matter until they don't.
Until they don't.
I think in this case, and he beat Devin Alexander. He kind of did everything that Amir Khan told them he should do. Fight Devin Alexander, then we can fight, and, whatever reason he was
Well, I think
dictating.
there's backlash, though, because I think that there's a perception, and maybe it's the truth, but
That he ducked him?
Yeah, but I really think he ducked Gary Shaw as his promoter.
He did.
That's what I think happened, and I know a lot of people disagree. And folks, please stop the talk of the boycott. Okay, on Martin Luther King Day, I just want to say one thing. This is not the Birmingham bus situation.
No.
Okay? It's not that serious. If you like Floyd Mayweather, buy his fight. If you like Manny Pacquiao, buy his fight. And if you don't like either guy and you want to protest, then don't buy that fight.
Right.
But that has to be your decision. And when people saying, guys, you ought to start a movement. Folks, I'm not telling you what to do with your money.
Yeah.
It's the God's honest truth. And
that's not my job, is it?
Yeah.
If I'm going to start a movement, it's going to be about performance-enhancing drugs in the sport, or guys that are 0-9 not getting licensed because they've been knocked out in their last 9 fights. Those are things to get boycott and movement about.
Yeah.
A fight not happening?
Yeah, we're not doing Occupy Pacquiao / Mayweather. That's not our thing. I'm sorry.